This episode is sponsored by Repos Production. To episode 61 of the Board Game Geek podcast, where we geek out about board games, the mechanisms behind them, and the people who create them. I'm your host, Candace Harris, and I am super pumped to be here today with Jack from the Cardboard Herald YouTube channel and podcast. Jack, I feel like I love your videos, and look, I might have had a bias because you usually wear a Phillies hat, and I assumed you were from Philly. But how's it going today?
Oh, it's great. I'm so glad to be here, Candace. This is awesome. It's an honor to do this, and as I was mentioning earlier, I don't get to sit the other side of the digital table, so to speak, very often. So being on someone else's podcast and, getting to just enjoy the ride is super cool. And
awesome.
Yeah, Philly is one of my favorite cities. PAX Unplugged is my favorite convention. I got to hang out with you at PAX Unplugged, which was
cool.
So cool. So yeah. I'm feeling the love and I'm stoked to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, that was really cool. Like walking in the, the Asmodee preview room, and there were like tons of content creators there and everything. And, you are one of those people who's like, I've been watching your channel for a while and I love what you do. And like, we definitely I feel like you're an omni gamer in a similar way that I am. So I often just when I'm looking up a game, find your video, find your reviews and everything. And it's, fantastic quality. So it was really nice to actually meet you in person finally.
Yeah. And likewise, it's always a breath of fresh air to listen to the podcast. It's, great seeing you on BGG, but then suddenly you're hanging out at an Asmodee press conference and boom, in walks the Mick Jagger of board games. Candace comes in and you're like, oh geez, I better have my A game on here as a content creator.
Thanks, Jack. And that was really exciting because we got to play Great Western Trail El Paso.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on that one.
Yeah, you're kind of a Great Western Trail fiend, right?
A little bit. I think it's because it was my first heavy game and it was just really excited me. And I still think there's nothing that's quite like it,
Mm-hmm.
It's just Alexander Pfister, chef's kiss kind of a game. And
yeah.
I'm so glad that they're still putting different versions of it out. And El Paso is really cool because it's so streamlined and so much faster. So it's going to be just easier to get it to the table.
Yeah, just wait for GWT Duel. I'm sure it's right around the corner. We can't just have the smaller version.
True.
We gotta have Duel. Everyone and their mother is making a Duel game right now.
That is so true. I'm not going to be surprised if we see that. I'll love it. I'm ready for it already. But what's new on your end?
Well, I got a lot of irons in the fire. I mean, gaming wise, I just went to our local convention here in Alaska, Platypus Con, which, it may sound like a regional convention in Alaska. How big could that be? But it's actually a sizable regional convention. And it's here in Juneau, which is the capital of Alaska. People come from all over. There were several game designers that came up. John D. Clare was the guest of honor at the con.
Nice.
But there were some other folks who came from the lower 48, as we call it. And then just had a great time hanging out with friends and playing tons of games, hanging out with John and getting to really meet him and play some of his to be released or even to be announced stuff. That was kind of cool. He's like, you can take photos, just, don't share this one around.
That guy is a prototyping machine.
Yes.
Like John is like, he comes up with like really cool ideas, and he's just, it seems like every year there are more and more John D. Clare games coming out. That's
yes. Cool. Absolutely. He's fire, both in the terms of just constantly going and terms of just the quality of product. But other than that, the Cardboard Herald, we're doing a lot of reviews. We just wrapped the end of the year stuff, which you graciously joined us for our Cardboard Herald and Friends video, which was a lot of fun to put together.
Thanks for having me on there. That was cool.
Yeah, it was kind of a brainchild of Eric and I sitting and thinking about, like, what's our favorite part about games? It's really about, the mutual enthusiasm and energy and different perspectives. And what could we do to represent that more than just myself and Eric sitting and looking at a camera? Well, what if we invite a lot of other friends who are designers, developers, artists, content creators to come on. And it's probably my favorite video that we've done for the channel. Just really well produced. It was a thrill to have all the different voices. Really enjoyed that. And then doing more kind of podcasting stuff like this. I've done a ton of interviews. We're still doing interviews, but
nice.
Lots of, now that we have Eric, who's joined the channel, doing more content creation stuff over the last year, we're doing a renewed focus on specific topics and kind of going through our own perspectives on that. And also just a, casual hangout, what we've been playing type of thing.
Very cool. Yeah, it was really awesome meeting Eric as well at PAX Unplugged. So are you pretty pumped about the Eagles being in the Super Bowl?
Yes. Go Birds. Go Birds. It's funny. You mentioned earlier that I'm an Omni gamer, but when you grow up in Alaska, we don't have professional sports teams. So you're allowed to just kind of pick whatever affiliation that you want. And so, I typically have the Phillies as the baseball team. I'll go for Flyers. And then, I have this division between going for the Eagles or to honor my grandpa, who is a Californian through and through from the Bay Area. I have to go with the 49ers. But, if I'm rooting for any teams, it's those two.
Yeah. I don't even watch football or like sports ball, but I do, being from the suburbs outside of Philly, I do bleed green. And so, my mom watches every single game, and those Philly fans, they are into it.
They have a reputation. What's new with you? What's going on? What is happening that you are stoked for right now?
Well, it has been already like a busy start to the year, like really, really busy. So just last week, I guess it was BGG's 25th anniversary, which is wild. And we launched a Hall of Fame of games and, inducted the first 25 games. And I was a part of that process and like putting together videos for each of those games. And that was very time consuming. But I'm happy the way it turned out. So that was really cool. And then we did a live stream on the 25th anniversary. And it was really cool because Aldi was like showing old photos and old screenshots of like what Board Game Geek looked like way back in the day. And it's just hilarious. Things have changed so much in the past 25 years with BGG, but it's a really cool milestone. I've been a user since 2018, since I kind of discovered modern board games, but like there are so many people out there who have been there since probably like day one when Democker got added to the database.
Right. Yeah, it's such a cool thing to see, and I can't think of a better organization to kind of represent and I don't know, be that ambassador for the hobby. And I like that there's some delineation between what is the popularity, the BGG Top 100, which has for such a long time been the like de facto. If someone wants to learn about board games, you just refer them to that list. To have an independent panel, evaluate and assess what games that they want to induct. Now, of course, that can come with all kinds of considerations. It can come with some people with some strong feelings about one thing or another. But I think anytime where you are trying to take a subjective thing like what are the best representations that we want to honor out of a medium and collate them in a way that, like you're saying, this is the Hall of Fame, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think you guys really made some smart decisions there. I don't know that I would have come up with the exact same 25, but I think I would be at least 15 of those.
Okay.
And I respect all of the reasoning behind all of them. And I was looking forward to the daily updates that were coming out of it. And it's funny to as a simple anecdote here, because we're podcasters, we have to digress. And we always talk about how we want to keep it short, but then we go on to tangents. Along with this BGG thing, this last year was the 40th anniversary for Alaska's longest running friendly local game store, Bosco's Cards, Comics, and Games.
Oh, wow.
And I went to that, which was great because my older brother and I grew up in that shop. We moved to Alaska from overseas. It was our first time living in the U.S. and, we were really young, and that's where we got all of our X-Men comics and we got all of our, various things. And then we got our Magic the Gathering cards there in like early 90s.
Oh, so cool.
They gave us our first jobs. And so like, I'm looking at this reel of old photos and stuff as they are going up, and I'm seeing myself in high school working at this shop, and man, memory lane, us gamers are growing up,
That is super cool. Wait, where are you originally from?
Well, I was born in the Philippines, and then the first few years I lived in Southeast Asia. So my family's all from California, but my dad worked for the U.S. Immigration Service, and so we lived in embassies in
Gotcha.
We lived in Manila, Philippines, and then New Delhi, India. We lived for a little while in Rome, Italy, and then eventually we moved to Alaska.
Cool. Well, Jack, because you always wear those Philly hats, I'm always going to just think you're from Philly.
Associate me with her. That's okay.
And that's where I first met you, too. So
exactly. I'll take it.
Another thing that I'm kind of I'm excited about a lot right now, by the way. I feel like, I'm excited about a lot of board games, but next month I'm teaming up with Jenna from Board Game Garden and also Jay Bernardo from Cardboard East and Taylor Reiner from Taylor's Trick Taking Table. And we're doing this idea that kind of like got figured out at PAX Unplugged also, called TrickTakeuary. So in the month of February, every day, at least one of us is going to post some kind of trick-taking related content. And then I think we're going to do a live stream together on Valentine's Day.
That sounds awesome. What's your favorite trick-taking game at the moment? Like the thing that you just want to get to the table?
Ooh, I would say one that I played at BGG Con is an older game that just had a new revised edition. Mew and More, the revised edition. That one I haven't played since I've been back from BGG Con, but it's mainly because I see where it shines at 5 players, and I just haven't had that player count. But it's super cool because it has this whole, some games you're playing with a teammate, you have a partner or whatever. This is a game where each round you might be teamed up with different people, and I always love that. And it also has this like really cool bidding system to see what the teams are going to be, where you reveal cards from your hand. And there are just so many layers to it. And I was so fascinated by it. I mean, that's why it's the kind of game that it's been around for so long. So I'm glad they made a new version.
Sounds like that needs to be on the BGG Hall of Fame 2026 list
right,
here.
Right. Anyways, we are, we could talk about so much, but what are we here to talk about today? Where are you? Are you over there? Are you over here? Today, we're going to discuss hidden movement board games. I know that was cheesy, but
we're here for the cheese. We live for the cheese.
Yes. And Jack, you were kind of excited about talking about some hidden movement board games.
Yeah, well, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's kind of been a through line for my history in gaming, and I think that it's an under-celebrated aspect of games. And when a hidden movement game is done well, it really sings. So I'm looking forward to the chat.
Cool. Me too. I love anytime when one of my guest co-hosts is like passionate about something, because I know you're going to have some games on your list that I'm going to have to go and get and check into. But it was also fun for me to make my list as well, because I have played quite a few. But before we start getting into our favorite hidden movement games, I'd love to hear what you've been playing lately, Jack. So let's jump into fresh plays.
Yeah, well, I have the first of my fresh plays, which both of these are going to come from Platypus Con. As I said,
yeah.
I just went to that. And listen, Candace, I don't need a TCG in my life, right? You know, I talked about Magic earlier. I dropped it. I played Legend of the Five Rings. I played it for so long, dropped it. I've been through the gamut, and at this point, I am a box board gamer. I want it all in one box I can buy and just play and enjoy it, and maybe foolishly add on some expansions that maybe don't necessarily make it better, but still I buy them anyway.
I know. I have that same problem.
But my friend, game developer and designer Michael Dunsmore, originally from Alaska, shout out to him. He recently got hired, I'm super stoked for him, by Fantasy Flight Games to work on the Star Wars Unlimited team. And he was back up at PAX Unplugged, or not PAX Unplugged, at Platypus Con. See, I have these back-to-back conventions that both start with P's, and so it's a nightmare. Anyway, he's at Platypus Con, visiting family, hanging out with me, and he didn't pressure me into this or anything, but we're sitting there, and I was like, rather than getting another game for the library, I want to go over there to the booth. I'm going to grab one of the starter packs or pre-cons for Star Wars Unlimited and have you show me, because, I get to play with the guy who made it. Let's do it.
Yeah, dangerous, Jack. That's dangerous.
You don't even know. So we played. I had a really great time. It's very tactical. It's very smart. I like how it's presented. The complexity is somewhere between, say, like Pokemon and Magic. My son is right at the stage where he's into Pokemon and plays a little bit of Magic, and I think this is going to be like the perfect game for him. And being a doting dad and someone who's a lapsed TCG guy, I'm like, oh no, I see where this is going. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and the fact that it's new and accessible. And clearly the booth had some for me to buy. And today I went over to Alaska Robotics here in Juneau and I bought some booster packs and texted my son, hey, you want to open some of these tonight? All of you can't see because this is an audio podcast, but I hope you can hear the crinkle of some sweet boosters to tear open. So Hopefully, this doesn't spell a problem for 2025 here, but Star Wars Unlimited was impressive enough that I definitely wanted to check it out more. So that's the fresh play at the moment.
Yeah, so I played Star Wars Unlimited last year, 2023 PAX Unplugged, and I thought it was really good too. Like, I like the way the cards are used as resources.
Yeah.
Of course, I was playing at their booth where every table is decked out with the Galaxy play mats, and it just looked really, really cool. But I hear you. These TCGs are so dangerous because I love card games like this,
right.
you know?
Yep. What have you been getting to the table?
Well, about a month ago, I was doing an order with a retailer in France called Philibert that usually you can get a lot of games if they have an English copy of it that you might not be able to get in the US, like new Essen releases. Even though I went to Essen, I forgot what I was ordering from Philibert, but I'm like, hey, if I'm going to do an order, I should maybe try to make the most of the shipping cost. So I was like looking around and I ended up finding, and I wanted to find something that like I couldn't get or had never heard of. And I found this game called Crown of Ash. And I looked it up on BGG and I was like, oh, this sounds cool. Worker placement and area control. All right, looks good. Let's give it a whirl, So I finally got this game to the table. It's designed by Richard Lawton and his company. I think he runs his own small publishing company called Card Noir. This is a 2024 release that was, I'm pretty sure, crowdfunded, and it plays with 1 to 4 players. And in the game, thematically, everybody takes on the role of these like vengeful necromancers, and they're sending their minions out to do their bidding, and they're trying to take down the king. And your minions are your little workers that you're going to be placing. But what you're going to be doing is basically placing workers into these different areas of the board. But I want to say this has like kind of some Lords of Waterdeep and like Tyrants of the Underdark vibes, because at the start of the game, each player is going to control an area of the board. And the board is really like, a lot of the art and graphic design is really fantastic with this game. So you'll be in a section, right? And you will put down one of your control tokens to say, okay, I control the mountains or the volcano area. And then you're going to put one of your starting, what do they call these? Fighters. So everybody starts with these 3 kind of like basic fighter cards. And you're going to put one out to kind of like defend your area. And then your area also starts with a starting building. And a building is just like a space where you can go, and most of them, I believe, are to get resources, but it's the kind of worker placement where if somebody comes to a building I control, I get a little treat when they get their resources.
Yeah. I love that. I love some sense of ownership and, like feeling like you're getting something out of other people's benefit.
Yes. It is like really nice. And I'll be like, hey, Jack, like I'll use yours, remember that time? But yeah, there are like 4 main resources, and then there's gold or money. And the resources are thematic because like the idea is you're raising armies of undead fighters. So you're collecting like blood, sulfur, ash, and like bones, I think. And just very simple, 4 resources, and you're getting them. And at the end of each of your turns, so you will place a worker on one of the worker placement spaces, and then you'll take the action. And then at the end of your turn, if you would like to, and you have the resources, you can buy or raise one of the fighters that's at a card market by paying the resources.
Of course. You're competing over the bodies of the dead. I like it.
Yep. You're bringing them up. Yeah. To take down the king, and yeah, that's why it's called Crown of Ash, I guess. But when you get a card, it just goes into your hand. So there's like a slight deck building thing. But the other things you can do in this game is you can go to a space that'll let you build a building. And when you build a building, these are tiles. They're going to be, there's a little market row of those, like maybe 4 or 5 of them are out for you to choose from. But you pay money to build a building. And when you build a building, you could either build it on an like uncontrolled spot on the board, or you can put it on top of a building you already have. And buildings and controlling spaces that have a building are important because every round they're going to score points. And there's a point value on the building itself, but then also any that are stacked beneath are worth 1 extra point. And that scores at the end of each of the 4 rounds of the game. So the other big thing about this game, besides the fact that you're collecting resources trying to get these cooler fighters for your deck, is combat. So you are going to be like fighting other players. And the combat is really, really, I love it because each player has a deck of the same 5 combat cards.
Okay.
And so if for my turn, I put a worker on one of your areas in the attack spot, that means I am going to pick up to 2 fighters from my hand, put them face down, and then we're both going to pick 1 combat card, put it face down, and then we simultaneously reveal, we calculate the strength. Whatever your defense is based on the cards that are protecting that area. So the fighters that are there, you're not playing any fighters from your hand.
Right.
But the combat cards, like some of them give you +4, +3, +1, or let you roll a die. And one of the things I love about these combat cards, number 1, once you play one, it's discarded and you don't get your combat cards back until either you've played them all or you take a refresh action to pull them back into your hand.
I love that.
Yeah. I think it reminds me of like Ankh or something in that sense. So the combat's really cool. The other thing on these combat cards that I really, really liked is the fact that each card has a something you'll get if you win the fight and something you'll get if you lose the fight. So sometimes, like, I was attacked once where they knew they were going to lose, but they did it to get whatever the loss effect was on the combat card they were playing.
It gives you a little extra calculus, you know?
Yeah. So it's like, it's combat-y, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like take that or anything, but you're trying to like basically build buildings, control areas. And in the center of the board is like the King's area. This is like the Mechatol Rex. And at the beginning of the game, there's literally a king card there. And whoever takes that spot, you get a nice amount of points each round that you control that spot. Like, and it increases every round. Like at the end of round 1, if you control it, you get 4 points. And around 2, maybe it's 6 points, you know? So you can't let one player sit on that spot. But it's definitely in the sense of like Tyrants of the Underdark, where certain players might start like attacking one player and then,
right.
You know, it's got that kind of dynamic, but we all really enjoyed it. And it's very sleek. There's an advanced variant where you can play with each character is asymmetric.
Yeah, I'm looking at this on BGG right now, and it's really got a gorgeous production. I hadn't heard about it, but this is definitely going on my list. I really like how you pointed out the sort of King of the Hill mechanic at the center where you accrue more and more points if you are able to stay on there longer. And yeah, anytime that you have to make limited but important choices about a certain small selection of cards in your hand and then expend resources, which might be an action, thinking about time as a resource,
right?
To reclaim them is a really smart mechanism to use in pretty much any system where you can just kind of make that opportunity cost an important aspect of the game.
For sure. And the other thing that's pretty cool is these fighters that you're able to, you know, raise one from the dead at the end of your turn. There are 3 tiers of these, and within each tier, they get more powerful. They cost more resources, sure. but they're also these automaton cards, which are these gray cards. And they're basically when you recruit one of those to your hand and you use it for a combat, it gets shuffled back in. So these are like temporary workers that are kind of, or fighters that are beefy, but when you use them to attack or defend, they go away and they get like recycled in. And then I guess the one other thing I'll point out with like the end game scoring is everybody at the beginning of the game gets a fate card that has 2 different suits of these different fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the game, let's say I had like the white suit and the red suit on my card. I think that's exactly what I had. For every fighter that has that suit that I've recruited during the game, whatever the tier level is, like 1, 2, or 3, that's how many points I'll get for those at the end of the game, which is cool. And it was a low scoring game. Like I think I won with like 44. The next was like 40.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed it. I already ordered the like deluxe components.
Of course you did. Don't you love that?
Yeah.
I had that reaction after a game of Pagan recently where
my gosh. I did too with Pagan.
Yeah. Yeah, I played it once and I was like, I think I need those sexy wooden components.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Those little cardboard tokens were not doing it for me either. But yeah, this game, and it's really funny because like I left the table being like, okay, that was cool. But I kept thinking about it, you know, and then I'm like, okay, I want to play this more. I want the cool tokens. So anyways, it's Crown of Ash. Yeah, it's an indie publisher, designer from England, I believe. And yeah, it was just something I stumbled upon, and it's right up my alley. If you like worker placement, area control, like Tyrants of the Underdark and Lords of Waterdeep, like it's got that like lightness to it, but lots of cool player interaction. And yeah, and it just felt like a little different.
That's awesome. You know, I played another game that I wanted to talk about at PlatypusCon that actually, you're talking about that kind of old school, the lightness and, a little bit of aggression, but at the same time, some like Euro sensibilities. And since John D. Clare was there, I took the opportunity to try out Mistborn. Which was fun.
I'm curious about that one.
Yeah, it's hard to make a kind of standard deck building game really shine these days, not because the mechanic itself has lost its luster, but because there's been so much innovation in that space at this point that you really have to do something flashy or really unique with it to stand out from the crowd. And one of the things that I think traditional style deck building games, which I would say that overall this feels like the general flow of play could have been something that came out, 10 years ago. I could have been playing it along with Thunderstone. But the things that deck building games in my mind have always had a real hard time with was thematic resonance and really trying to capture what theme is being displayed, and also correlating what you're doing as an abstraction to, like certain actions or events or things happening in life, because so many deck building games are essentially like one another. And that's where I think this game actually really shines. Not only am I a fan of the novels that it's based on and all of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere stuff, but I think that this game, it's made by Brotherwise Games. It's a very accessible, just kind of like mid-weight poppy deck building game that manages to make 8 individual resources that you can gain and expend make sense in a way that I think any other game would have been completely convoluted and not been approachable for people who want more accessible games. And that works beautifully within the theme because for those in the audience who aren't aware of Mistborn, you're essentially like superheroes who are, like fantasy superheroes or, magic users, where the magic system is based off of ingesting metals, and different metals give you different magical abilities. And so the 8 resources are the different metals that you're consuming and expending for the different effects. It smartly jockeys that whole concept into the acquisition of cards and then how to power up and refill these resources in ways that really made sense to me in the vein of Mistborn, in a way that I completely didn't expect. Like, I thought it would have cool artwork, and I thought it would have cool names and cool cameos, and I could be like, oh, okay, yeah, there's Vin, and there's the Lord
Nice,
Ruler,
yeah.
and here's this, and here's that. Maybe some deep cuts here and there, but I actually thought it was one of the smartest applications of resource management and simple deck building mechanics to reflect the kind of spirit of the world and the tone of the world. It's not revolutionary. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is it card? Is it like 95% card based, or is there a board? Okay.
If it's just a broad overview, like you have your deck that you're drawing 5 cards from. You have your own character, and that character has abilities that level up at standard progression throughout the game, but you may impact that. And you're either using that to generate attack in almost like a King of Tokyo sort of way, where one person is the target of all other players' damage, and when it's that person's turn, they can target everyone at the table with damage. And you're either trying to whittle them down to 0 health, or there are these side missions which, if accomplished at certain progression of doing these side missions, you're going to get bonuses that may help you kill your opponents or drive deck building mechanics. You have a hand of 6 cards instead of a hand of 5 cards now, or you have, discounts in the card market or whatever. But if you complete all 3 of the missions, then you also win the game. So you have a little bit of tug of war between the different things that you can compete towards, and you can put pressure on one to give you more room on the other. But it overall is just a deck building game. You want to clear out as many dud cards as you can. You want to get as many cards that are synergistic, working together, as you can. It just does it in a way that I think anyone who is either a fan of Brandon Sanderson's work or like a dedicated fan of deck building games is going to find that even if it's not completely innovative, it really delivers on what it promises to be, which is just a solid one of these games with some interesting thematic concepts that integrate really well into the system.
Awesome. So that is Mistborn. Yeah, I have been really, really super curious about it, because it's like deck building is one of my favorite mechanisms. And with John, with Edge of Darkness and like Mystic Veil, and
right,
like he's always doing something cool.
yeah. And if anything, this game is maybe the least component wise innovative of any of his games. I'm like, John, I'm not slotting anything into anything else. What's going on here? Shouldn't I be like constructing something as I go? And he's like, no.
That was his plan. He was like, wow us with all the sleeving and craziness, and then just dial it back, but make it really interesting anyway.
Yep, that's the plan.
Awesome. Well, that is Mistborn. And speaking of card games that are doing something a little fun, I finally played, after hearing Eric Martin like rave about this game a bit last year, Panda Spin. And Panda Spin is a climbing shedding card game designed by Carl Chuduk, who is the designer of Innovation, Glory to Rome.
I think Lord of Rome is him. Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of games. A GNC, which came out last year.
Yeah. Crash, Impulse. He's
Red
done a
7.
lot. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I received a review copy of this when I was at Essen at the Madigo Games booth, but I think the original publisher for the game is Moongate Design. And it says it's a 2025 release, but it was available at Essen 2024. And it plays with 2 to 5 players. As with most climbing shedding games, you're trying to get rid of your cards first to get the most points.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, since it's called Panda Spin, you're collecting bamboo points. And each of the cards are double-headed, I guess, or two-sided, where you could flip it like the cards in Scout.
Yeah, I was about to say just like Scout.
But in a different way. Each of the cards features different Chinese zodiac animals. And there are 5 different suits: wood, metal, water, fire, and earth. And when you play this game, well, let me say this first because I was talking about the double-sided cards. So on the top of the card, the value of the card will be in a little white box, and the picture of whatever animal it is going to be the physical version of that animal. And on the opposite side, when you flip it over, the value is different, and it's in like a little blue banner, and the art is this representing the spirit side of that animal. And on the other side, it's also the blue side, the spirit side is a more powerful card. It's a more powerful value, and I'll get into that in a second. I played a 3-player game of this. I really want to play it with 4. But you have these 5 suits, and you can either just pick which of the 3 in a 3-player game that you want to play with, or you can randomly shuffle, give everybody one, and then you're only going to play with those suited cards all shuffled together. Deal everybody 12 cards. Whoever's first will play some kind of combination, a single, and then if lead player plays a single, you either play a higher single or pass. And the cards go from 3 to 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, and then 2. There's like a Chinese 2 symbol, and that's like the strongest card. And then you just keep playing around till one player's still in. Mm-hmm. The reason it's called Panda Spin, though, is because let's say you go around, you play a card, and then it comes back to you, and you're like, I'm gonna pass. If the cards you've played on the table so far are all on the white side, when you pass, you take them back in your hand on the blue side. And it makes it like, it definitely makes it like, especially when you're playing this the first time, like challenging to kind of evaluate your hand. And typically I'm not like a big, like I love trick-taking games more than climbing shedding games. Right. But I thought this one was really cool because in addition to beating the combination with higher value of the same type of, or same amount of cards, I shouldn't say same amount of cards, same amount of values, because when you're on the blue side, sometimes there will be cards that have like 3 8s on one side. And so it's always the values. And if you play that one card, that would be like a 3 of a kind, 3 8s, So you have some really interesting choices with when to pass. Sometimes when leading, you might like, oh, I'm going to lead with a low card because I know somebody's going to like beat this, right? And then I'll get to flip this card in my hand. But in addition to that, like you can also play bombs, which is like I guess I assume it's from Tichu. I don't know what the first game that had bombs, but
right.
That's like 4 or more of the same value. So you could play a bomb to beat something. The other thing is you have these element cards, and each of the element cards has some kind of like condition. So like maybe it might say something like, oh, if the trick has blue and white cards, then you can play this card. and you end it and you win that hand, but you have to draw 2 cards from the deck of remaining cards, which early in the game is not bad, right? You get more numbers for bigger combos and everything.
But later, that's giving you a lot more consideration that you have to work with. And it's like, man, I was almost there, but now 2 more cards. So my whole plan is derailed.
Right. But you can, before you play a card on your turn or pass, you can discard as many of these element cards as you want and just not use them. So like one of my tricks was like I went out one round by discarding an element card and then I played like my last 2 cards or whatever. So there's some fun stuff you could do with those element cards. It also gives you the momentum of leading the next hand. You're trying to like balance, like you don't want to get down to a single card, you know. So there are all these like just regular climbing, shedding challenges. But when you go out, so in my 3-player game, right, if the first person goes out, you're going to look at how many cards are in the other 2 players' hands. Whoever has the most, that's how many bamboo points you get, to a max of 7. Then when a second player goes out, they get bamboo points based on the amount of cards in the last person's hand, and that's the end of the round. And you play it until at least one player has 15 or more points. And then whoever has the most points wins. The other interesting thing about this is that a lot of the cards have a little icon on them, either on one side. I don't know if any of them had it on both sides, but you have like these special icons. If you have a bamboo icon, for every bamboo icon on a card you play, you get a point. For every water, you can make that card wild. So a water symbol on a card can be wild. For fire, if you play cards with fire, for each of them that you play, you get to discard cards from your hand, which is super cool. And then, again, the game's called Panda Spin. So if the card you play, or any of the cards you play, have a panda icon, you're going to look at this panda token, which you decide at the beginning of the game if you want to like set the panda's mood randomly or set it to one side or the other. But the panda's mood matters. And so in our game, the panda's mood was saying that basically whenever you see a panda icon, that means you can flip one card in your hand. You spin it. So that was cool. But the other way I think is like you take a point from someone. So you can like kind of play whatever panda mood you want. And it just stays like that for like the entirety of the game. But this game is gorgeous.
Yeah, I was going to say,
gorgeous.
You know, like for those of us who have been poisoned by game names like Lupin Louie and Lupin Chewy, you might hear Panda Spin and think like, oh, this must be like, you know, some cute Haba game for little kids. But like, no, bam, that artwork looks like some Image Comics circa 2005, like real cool, beautiful, luscious artwork that has these super rad looking pandas and, you know, like, well, I mean, all kinds
of animals.
Yeah, lots of spirit animals.
And they're metallic on the back too.
I didn't even realize that. That's super cool. But the inversion between the spirit versions of the animals and the physical realm version of the animals is really neat. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, this game, even if you don't like climbing shedding games, but you can just appreciate art, like these cards are gorgeous. Like the whole time I'm playing, I'm like, oh my gosh, they feel great. They look great. So I'm happy to have finally played Panda Spin. And I actually, like, I'm doing jury duty this week, and I'm bringing it with me to play on our lunch break with some of my jury duty quote unquote coworkers.
I didn't see that on 12 Angry Men, but you know, I like it.
Awesome. And now a word from our sponsor. Welcome to the first one deck building. Who will wear the crown? Coming from noble families, you're ready to do anything to accede to the throne, except that the competition between the pretenders is fierce. For a Crown is a game with original mechanics, combining bluffing, alliances, and opportunism. Players will be able to recruit new characters and put the purchase card in a sleeve of their own color. All cards, player cards, and common event cards are shuffled into a single deck, which is drawn card by card and resolved one by the relevant player. After 4 rounds, the player with the most rubies wins the game. For a Crown is enhanced by stunning artwork and components, making the game completely immersive. It's a game full of tension, dirty tricks, fallen hopes, and moving family influence. Its universe and constant interaction make it ideal for families and more experienced players alike. Let's start talking about some hidden movement games that we love.
Yeah, help me fill this in because you're the professional. You're the BGG rep.
I fooled you.
Yeah, if for my perspective, if I were sitting down with someone and just being like, let's play some hidden movement, and they're like, what are you talking about? I would say that a hidden movement game is any game that obfuscates at least one player's location, but that location is still a specified area or zone on the map, or on a board or amongst cards, and it's either both players or the other side is trying to deduce and make tactical decisions, usually trying to find where the hidden player is to either engage in combat or, like end up arresting them or anything. A lot of times, like the hidden person is a nefarious type of person thematically. Right. But it's a game of cat and mouse and a game of hide and seek rolled into one and wrapped in a cardboard package.
You nailed it. I mean, I think I would describe it in a very similar way, and what I like is that they're lots of different types. Like, I think I never played a full game of Fury of Dracula, but that excited me the first time I demoed it at a con. They had a 101. I was like, oh, this is so cool. That was my first taste of it.
Right.
And since I've now discovered all different types of hidden movement games, and I find them really fascinating and exciting regardless of which side you're on too. If you're the one that's hiding and trying not to get caught, there's tension, or if you're the one trying to catch somebody, it's oh, this puzzle I'm trying to solve. But I think hidden movement games are pretty cool. I haven't played a ton of them. I mean, what do you think was some of the earlier hidden movement games? Like Scotland Yard or something?
Yeah, actually, Scotland Yard is the first one I played, and the reason why I picked this as a topic, and I've mentioned throughout the years that I've been doing the Cardboard Herald, why hidden movement is kind of near and dear to my heart, is my first gaming memory is sitting on my mom's lap as she, in New Delhi, India, was playing Scotland Yard with my older brother. And he's 5 years older than me, and I was probably 4 at the time.
Aww,
and so,
cool.
I wasn't actually doing anything, but I was helping my mom, so to speak. But that's a foundational memory. I remember that before checkers. And so Scotland Yard was a game that we had, and it was something that as I got older, I played more of, and I, kind of took off with my brother doing all sorts of games. And he's the one who, ushered me into Magic because he didn't have anyone to play against his own age. So he was like, all right, Jack, you're learning this game. And,
nice.
It was kind of my gateway to more involved hobby games that wasn't just the typical games that kids were playing.
Yeah. Was this list easy for you to come up with 5 hidden movement games?
Well, it was and it wasn't. There were several favorites that came immediately to mind. And then, as with making any of these lists, I had to do a little bit of horse trading. And then I also had to think about, what do I consider a hidden movement game? There's a lot of deduction games that kind of tiptoe in the realm of hidden movement. there are certainly a few games out there that you wouldn't necessarily think of immediately as a hidden movement game, but a core aspect of them is having like a hidden base and making sure not to reveal that. I mean, looking just in the background of your wonderful room there, I see Star Wars Rebellion hanging out, and
Yeah, you
and
do.
and I haven't seen your list. Like for the audience, this is no joke. I have not seen Candace's list. She has not seen mine, but Star Wars Rebellion is there. You could make the argument, and possibly one of us might make the argument
Possibly.
that it belongs on a list of the greatest hidden movement games. But that's what's so interesting about this is there isn't a huge amount of these compared to deck building games or worker placement games or trick taking games. And they only come into mainstream popularity within the board game sector now and then. But there are definitely some mainstays that I think have been and continue to be celebrated. So it was relatively easy for me to come up with this list. But what about you? Like, was this a challenge? Because you asked me what I might want to talk about, and I was like, what about hidden movement games? And you were like, oh, yeah. Let's do it. Okay, let's see. Let's check the list.
Yeah, so like that's part of it. Like, I like the challenge of being like, let me sit down and think about this. Like, which hidden movement games do I love, and like, what do I love about them? And like you're saying, like the fact that there aren't that many compared to other mechanisms or categories or styles of games, but a lot of them are very different, because it's cool to see how people tie whatever theme they're using to this mechanism. I would say my list was let's just say I have some weird ones.
Okay.
Well, let's start with your number 5.
Well, my number 5 is one of the more recent games on this list, and that's Mind Management. I'm a comic book guy. I love comic books, and I think this is a great adaptation of this theme. It's also got this, like, even independent of whether or not you've even heard of Mind Management as a comic book, it has this cool, hip 60s spy thriller look to it that's really inviting. But the game itself is just strongly produced. Like, it's original, smart, fast, and escalates after play, introducing more and more mechanisms, which one of the things that hidden movement often is accused of is being a little too bare bones, and it gives you a lot of levers to play with. The publisher is Off the Page Games, and the designers are Sen-Foong Lim and Jay Cormier. Cormier, maybe. I don't know. I'm not always great with names.
Same.
But it's, like, I love that it incorporates the psychic elements as explanations for the deductive powers that you have, and to be able to identify where someone is and where they've been. And the pressures of the game as it mounts is just really wonderful. And they bake the production, they bake the whole theme and vibe of it into the entire production with the
That's cool.
ability to, like, they have the little red reader that you can look over different components and see what secret messages are throughout it, like cool. Old 3D glasses type of things. Like, there's a lot of flourishes that the game has that weren't necessary, but they went that distance. It's not the most expensive production, but it's certainly one of the coolest productions in recent gaming memory for me.
That's awesome. I'm excited that you brought that up. I'm also excited that I think I know another game you're going to bring up that I'm excited to hear more about. But I literally just committed to buying a copy of that from a my local convention's virtual flea market.
Oh, there you go.
I have a friend who loves it, and I'm like, how have I not played this yet? But I have a question. Is this one like a one versus many? Or wait, a one versus many, not many.
Yeah. It's definitely a one versus many, which is a thing that
Common.
happens in most hidden movement games. Like that's kind of the default setup. But it, like personally, I think my favorite hidden movement games tend to be a one versus one. I have a big exception to that, but I tend to find these games as best at two players, whereas just one versus one. But
Cool.
yeah, my management, if you're playing with multiple players, it's going to be one versus many.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, I am very excited to play that one. And I love that box cover is super iconic and striking. So, Jack, good observation. My number 5 that I had on my list, I had a 5A, and it is Star Wars Rebellion.
There we go. There we go.
But I also had like an honorable mention that I was like, am I going to talk about that or this other one? So I will be very brief about Star Wars Rebellion. But yes, I think it's such a cool thematic experience, and the tension you feel when you're like either the one being hunted or the one doing the hunting. It's just like it's so tense, and that one in particular is very thematic. So that's Corey Konitska, Fantasy Flight Games 2016 that came out. And I know you can play it with 4 players, but most people play it with 2 players.
It's like War of the Ring or anything.
Yeah,
sure, it could be played at higher player counts, but yeah, what an iconic game. And I can't believe that 2016 we're talking about nearly 10 years ago now. But Star Wars Rebellion, talk about a game that bakes hidden movement in as a sub mechanism as part of a larger structural whole. Man,
and so
cool.
like thematic. Yeah, but this is a big game, and there's some like complexity to it, but definitely very thematic if you're into Star Wars, where the complexity will not matter after you're into it because you'll be just so immersed in it. But my 5B is basically the button shy version of Star Wars Rebellion, and that is a game called Liberation. So I kind of like paired these together because Liberation came out in 2019. It's designed by John Simontiv, and it is an 18 card deck where like 4 of the cards are going to be your map, and then the rest are the cards that the 2 players are going to have. And there's like one player's like the Dynasty, the other one's the Liberation. It's totally Empire versus Rebels kind of thing. And the Liberation player is going to have a secret base, and they're trying to survive. So it has a lot of the feels of Star Wars Rebellion, but you can put it in your back pocket and take it anywhere because it's 18 cards. And I've only played it, I think, just once, but I thought it was really, really cool, especially like, these button shy games are so clever with what these designers are doing with 18 cards.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by the design community that's on BGG, like especially the print and play community, the solo development community. And I have so much respect for just what they're able to do with so few resources. I mean, even look at games like Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs was something born out of Nikki Valens being like, can I make Gloomhaven into this tiny little pocket version? And now we actually have a fully produced version of that. But so cool to take these larger concepts and, find ways of minimizing them like that.
Yes. And I still haven't played Buttons. What is it? Bugs and Buttons?
Yeah, I think it's Buttons and Bugs. Oh, if you're into solo gaming, then yeah, I mean, it's a dedicated solo. but it is definitely worth checking out. It was one of my personal favorite games of the year, and it's if you're someone who likes looking at a puzzle and being like, I have to min-max my way through this because I have very few resources in order to make it through this. That game's awesome.
Cool. I will check that out on my list. I'm going to, like, my other alternate number 5 I'll mention at the end as like an honorable mention, but what's your number 4?
Okay, so coming in at number 4 is a game that if it were widely available, I would probably put it higher on my list. I felt a little guilty in having it on this list because it's not something that's widely available anymore, and that's Ninja Legend of the Scorpion Clan. It's from 2011, published by Alderac, AEG, and the designer is Frederick Moyerson, who I'm not too familiar with their work in general. I guess they did Sabotage, so that's another classic of theirs.
Which I haven't played, but I know that box cover.
So, people who aren't familiar with me from the Cardboard Herald might not know that I was a very avid Legend of the Five Rings person, like way back in the AEG days. And Legend of the Scorpion Clan was one of the first tabletop implementations of Rokugan, the setting from Legend of the Five Rings, outside of the card game and the very famous RPG. And it is this beautiful hidden movement game where one player is trying to infiltrate into an estate and either do an assassination or a capture, and the other player is playing all the guards that is looking out for them. And I think the closest that you're going to get to this game that's currently in production would be Spectre Ops by Plaid Hat, which is also a really good game and was a consideration for my list. And so that's kind of the 4B for my 4A here. But it's rudimentary. It definitely feels like it could use a second edition or, some sort of revival, especially with things like River of Gold having just come out using the Rokugan setting. But I have so many fond memories of myself and in particular my friend John just playing this over and over and over again and developing a really tense meta of understanding what all the potentials that they might do and trying to counter those. It's almost like that famous scene in The Princess Bride where they're sitting down and it's like, only a fool would put the cup in front of them, but you're no fool, but you expect me to put, that whole thing.
I love that.
You get into head games. It has positional awareness in really smart ways where if you're the guards, you can use like listening to detect if there's been fast movement around you recently. There's a lot of cool combat mechanics for how the hidden player, the ninja, can interact with the guards to either, stab them or, cut them down from a distance. Hide in the bushes, hide in the moat. It's a smart game. It's a fast game. It's a game that's not that available now, but hey, I'm the guest on this podcast. I can put in games from 2011. So, Ninja Legend of the Scorpion Clan. But what's your number 4?
Well, pause for a second because I have a question about that one.
Sure.
Does it have the same, because I have the game Battle for Rokugan.
Oh,
another one in that world. I've never played L5R, the card game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been curious because I love card games, but I was like, I can't get into another one right now.
Yep.
But does it have that same kind of gorgeous art style?
But
maybe dated?
Yeah. listen, the AEG days of Westeros of Rokugan were not quite as gorgeous as the Fantasy Flight days.
Gotcha.
If you're wanting the Battle for Rokugan flavor, then I think you need to go over to the recently produced and really lovely River of Gold, which I think is one of the best just midweight Euros that I've played in a long time, and it just came out. Office Dog put that out. But, if you're wanting kind of Asian-inspired mythology and you don't mind a bit more of a dated look, then 2011, you can get the vibes there. You can get some vibes.
Nice. Yeah, I still haven't played River of Gold, but it looks, stunning with the actual like gold metallic look.
Oh yeah,
in there.
It's incredible. It's a jaw-dropping presentation. I played that at PlatypusCon as well. I brought in my copy, and there were a not insignificant number of people who just like stopped by and were like, "Oh, what dat? I want to check out this game. What's going on here?"
Shiny. Yeah, even the Battle for Rokugan is like really gorgeous. Like I love the art, and I just love that game anyway because I like putting secret order tokens down, and that meta mindset is fun too.
And come on, the kind of re-implementation of some of those core concepts from Game of Thrones, which is why I was saying Westeros, is yes. So cool to have again that sort of distillation of this bigger, meatier, like 3 to 4 hour game into a more manageable 60 to 90 minute game. Battle for Rokugan is awesome and should be available. We're continuing to talk about games not available. I don't know.
Like I had a hard time getting it a couple of years ago, but yeah, there are probably some secondhand copies floating around.
Yeah, people. Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to get this back. Office Dog, give us Battle for Rokugan 2nd edition.
Yes, bring them back. All right. We'll jump to my number 4. That was just exciting because I've never even heard of that game before. My number 4 is probably, is it the most traditional out of all the rest of them? I think so. And it is Sniper Elite.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, all right. Sniper Elite is a game that came out in 2022, designed by David Thompson and Roger Tankersley. And this is a game from Rebellion Unplugged that's based on Sniper Elite, the video game series, which is from Rebellion, regular Rebellion, I guess. Mm-hmm. Which it's like a stealth shooter kind of video game that they turned into a board game. I've never actually played the video game, but I've played the board game a few times. And in this game, one player is taking on the role of an allied sniper. And basically, the sniper he's dropped behind enemy lines, and he has to like complete these critical objectives during World War II. It's like a World War II setting. And the opponents that you're playing against are a team of Axis soldiers that are trying to like defend their base, and they're trying to like pretty much deal with this sniper. And for this sniper player to win the game, they have to like sneak around and pretty much like shoot their way past the defenders and then complete these 2 secret objectives before they run out of time. Meanwhile, the defenders have to like guard these key objectives and hunt down the sniper and basically prevent them from winning. But the Sniper Elite has like a double-sided game board. The art's really cool. Like you feel like you're really like chasing someone around, and each map has its own flavor and unique areas and different objective cards. The sniper player's like secretly recording their movement. I want to say, I'm trying to remember what it looks like that they have, because I haven't played this one in a while. One of the things I like is that they have a shot bag that has these tokens for aim, noise, and recoil. Mm-hmm. And during the game, and it's basically to like abstractly represent the sniper's accuracy. and level of concealment as they're trying to get a shot off on, one of the Allied soldiers, or I'm sorry, the Axis soldiers that are defending. So usually when the sniper goes to take a shot, they're going to have to remove a number of these tokens out, and there's different effects if certain tokens show up, and throughout the game you're going to change the population of tokens in the bag. But it's just very thematic, and every time I've played it is like really, really tense. Definitely, I want to say I didn't love 4 players because it dragged on, but like 2 or 3 was cool. There's also an expansion that has another map, and I think like more characters, and there are these different loadout cards that the sniper player gets to choose, and like basically the sniper can like place mines or use sound masking to kind of move around, and they just add a really cool dynamic to the game. So this one to me was probably, I would say, like almost the second hidden movement game that I actually played, and I think it's like really, really well done. Have you played this one?
Yeah, and what I really like about it is that it adds a lot that you can do as the hidden person, like a lot of systems that you can interact with that a lot of these types of games don't. And I don't know. We'll put a pin in this concept. We'll come back to this.
Okay,
because
good.
I'm of two minds about that. But Sniper Elite does it extremely well, where you have a lot of interesting other systems while still being definitively a hidden movement game, as opposed to like hidden movement as a way of facilitating one smaller aspect of a game.
Right.
So yeah, like killer pick, definitely one worth considering, and one that probably should be on a list if you're not just throwing on a bunch of unavailable games from 2011 out there.
Yeah, I'm not mean like you, Jack.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So my number 3 is where I think I picked probably the most divisive game that I could on this list, which is a game that I absolutely love, but was shocked by the reaction when it first came out. And that was Hunt for the Ring from 2017.
Oh my gosh. So,
yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Let's hear it.
I've owned Hunt for the Ring for so long, and you don't know how hard I was trying to get it played before talking to you, because I love Lord of the Rings, and
right.
I know a lot about it. I just have not played it yet, so I'm so glad you're bringing it up. And yes, okay, go ahead.
Right. So, War of the Ring is by Ares Games. It's by 2 of the co-designers of War of the Ring. I think I may have said War of the Ring earlier. So Hunt for the Ring is designed by Marco Maggi, Francesco Nepatello, and then Gabriele Mari is a kind of like guest co-designer on this to help with the hidden movement aspects. Again, put a pin in that. We'll come back to Gabriele Mari here in a bit. But nice. Hunt for the Ring is really trying to take that concept from the very beloved War of the Ring, where it's there is a hidden movement aspect to War of the Ring, but it's not really hidden movement. You're not really deducing where someone is. You're just getting a number of movement points and only scaling forward and revealing yourself on the map at a certain number of time or at a certain interval that you can control. But it's not true hidden movement because someone can't discover you on the map, so to speak. Like, you're not tracking independently where you are. So Hunt for the Ring is kind of the designer's answer to that. How do we, really bake that into a game? It's a weird system. It's got 2 parts to the game where, like at first you're Frodo, and then the Nazgul are hunting you, and they're using some really interesting mechanisms informed by dice to impact this. You have some cards, some other systems. You're navigating in throughout the Shire as you're trying to escape with the ring during the early stages of the Fellowship. And then once you're done with the first half, that's going to inform how you're going to start out on the second half of the game, which is where you're playing as Gandalf and you have a little bit more empowerment. Frodo has very little to do, whereas, during the second half, you have the assistance of Gandalf on the map. You're still playing as Frodo, but there's this weird bisected aspects of the game. There's an interesting component inclusion of Gandalf's letter to Barliman Butterbeer at Bree that you can like slot game components into as like a save state in case you want to come back to later. It does some cool radar type of stuff with what the Nazgul can do to perceive the ring through the ethereal shadow to locate where Frodo is. It's cool. It's interesting. It's weird. It's different. It's a little obtuse, but in the best sort of ways. It makes it a little idiosyncratic in a way that I find really endearing. And as a sucker for John Howe's artwork, I can't help but love it. So Hunt for the Ring is one that I've had in my collection since it came out, and I don't think it's going anywhere.
I'm so excited to play Hunt for the Ring. Sounds good. So do you typically play both phases of the game in one session, or do you split it up?
Well, I mean, it really depends. A lot of my gaming these days, it's either going to be on the weekend where I have more time, or it's going to be after doing everything in the workday and then everything afterwards, with the family. And then it might be my wife and I, or maybe a friend's coming over. And because it's a more involved game, I tend to play half at a time unless I have a full afternoon where I'm going to be able to get it to the table. I very much like to do that. And if given my rathers, I probably would play all of it in one fell swoop. But the game does bisect itself in a way that it makes sense and is convenient enough to put it away, come back to it in a week, and then get back to it. Or if you're just a really great Nazgul or a really terrible Frodo, you don't even make it to the second half of the game. So you don't even have to worry about it.
I'm super excited to play it. That's why I've held on to it all these years.
Well,
I'll let you know.
We got to play it. PAX Unplugged 2025. We can get it to the table. There you go.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. The whole convention will just be there playing Hunt for the Ring.
Cool.
All right. Well, my number 3 is a game that I only played once, and I played it last year. My friend Jordan has it, and it's a game called Sabotage by Tim Fowers and Jeff Krause. 2019 from Tim Fowers' publishing company, Fowers Games. I think this is a 4-player game. Maybe you could play with 3. I think 3 or 4. But it is 2. You play as 2 teams, and you sit on you put this big divider on either side, so you can't see where the other team is moving. But one team is these spies who are trying to save the world, and then the other team is basically villains who are trying to stop them. And so the spies are kind of creeping around trying to hide, where the villains are trying to figure out where they are and get them. And the game is kind of played on this 4x4 grid, so both teams will see that on their side of this dividing wall that I think is maybe part of the box or something. I don't remember. I'm
looking at a picture of this, and it is bananas, first off. And second, I've never played this, and I so badly want to play this. And third, this is making me just have that, oh my God, why didn't I think of this moment with Captain Sonar needs to be on this list.
Oh,
That is, of
yes.
course, hidden movement. But,
Yes.
we'll just say that's a strong number 6 for Jack as Captain Sonar. But please do continue telling me about Sabotage.
Well, first of all, I actually considered Captain Sonar as well, and that's another game that I only played once just last year for the first time. It was amazing. It was amazing. But this game, I played 2v2, and both teams have their own copy of the map. And again, you're separated by a divider, and you roll these dice, and both sides are going to simultaneously kind of like program what they're going to do with the dice. And the villains are going to go first, and then the spies. When the spies move, they have to announce some information about like the location of where they are to the villains, and they're trying to keep track of where the spies are, the villains are. I'm trying to remember like what else. I just remember like loving this game. You're trying to keep your movements separate. The spies need to like basically hack the doomsday machines of the villains, which I think you have to do like 8 hacks or something like that. You're planning your actions secretly. And both teams are trying to like deduce the location and like what the other team is trying to do. The screen separating like the teams is really cool. It's like it felt really tense, and it creates this like fog of war kind of, aspect to it. And yeah, I just love the hidden movement, deduction, action selection, the fact that it's teams, which is another reason I want to put it on this list, because I was trying to come up with like different ones instead of
variety.
just like
Variety.
Yeah. But sadly, this one is not really available. I think you can get it secondhand.
We need this hidden movement renaissance, keep these games in perpetuity.
Yeah, hopefully Tim reprints this one, but it's very cool. And
that's why you go to conventions,
Sabotage.
Right?
Yeah,
that's the plug. Not everyone has to own every game. And I think here in 2025, we can encourage everyone in the audience, find a way to play it. The copies are out there. There's going to be conventions. Go to a board game cafe. Hit up your friends. Maybe there's a way to play it. You don't have to own every game. You can just enjoy games. And maybe that's a way to play it.
To myself.
I know. Right. Right. Well, my number 2 is the newest on this list. And it's a game that I completely love, and that's Beast. Have you played Beast?
No, I haven't. And I've been so curious about Beast, but it's like I don't really hear many people talking about it. So talk about it, Jack.
Okay, you got it. So Beast is by Studio Midhall and designed by Aaron and Elon Midhall and Asar Peterson, I want to say. And it's probably the closest comparison in legacy, meaning not legacy games, but in the history of games, to like Fury of Dracula, in that it's a big, stompy game where the hidden movement is still secretive and deductive, but it's only one aspect among actually finding and fighting with the villain. One player is playing as one of several beasts, and you are trying to complete some sort of mission, which is known to the other players. And they are trying to run interference and use their powers, each as different characters that they can play as, that also can level up, have unique abilities, and acquire special skills that they're going to try to find, hunt, and kill the beast. If the beast takes a certain amount of damage or is unable to complete their mission before the end of the game, then the heroes win, the hunters win. But if the beast is able to successfully complete their mission, then boom, they're going to win. It's so gorgeous. Like, absolutely astonishing with this kind of Eastern European folklore presentation, very misty and mysterious and haunting in its look. If you're into the kind of Eastern Europe fairy tale vibe of something like The Witcher, that's very much the kind of vicinity that it plays in. And it's just, I don't know, like it feels to me like a game out of time. It still is modern, but it has the ambitions of something that during the Christian Peterson and Corey Konitska games of Fantasy Flight's like golden era would really be trying for. Lots of player
Cool.
powers, really gorgeous artwork, really gorgeous components. It's a game that asks a lot of understanding on the part of the players, and really delivers when everyone is invested. I don't think that it's particularly complex in a way that, it's impossible to learn, but I do think that it's very nuanced and is going to be something where people are going to get the most out of it if they are looking to get the most out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And thanks a lot. You just convinced me that I need another game.
Yeah.
I don't need another game. I'll play it at a convention. But it sounds super cool. And I've always been, I think Aldi, the owner of BGG, like was excited about this at some point and put this on my radar. And then I just sort of forgot about it. But I definitely always thought that the art on the box cover is really cool. So
Yeah.
I'll have to try Beast.
Yeah, it's a debut design from a new studio. So I think part of the availability is that it was a newer game and studio, and they only recently have had a reprint or are in the midst, I want to say, of working on like expansion materials and a reprint of the game.
Cool.
So I think the availability is going to be out there. It got some buzz when it first came out. I think it is really spectacular. The only caveat that I'd really give to this one is that it's one that is truly best at 3 because it does require that there's at least 2 heroes or
Gotcha.
2 hunters. And I've never been the biggest multi-hand fan. Like you can play 2 players, but it really works well when you have 2 independent hunters or even 3 independent hunters who are working in concert, using their powers and using their deductive reasoning to kind of suss out where the beast is while the beast is going tee, as they track their movement and then ultimately reveal an attack, which is something that I haven't really talked about, but this is maybe the game where most on this list you're going to give up information. You're going to really have to showcase where you are to be able to effectively, as the beast, accomplish your tasks. And so you're not perpetually hidden in the way that many of these other games are. The more modern, well, I guess Beast isn't exactly old, but a newer comparison, and one that I strongly considered for this list, I didn't put on the list because it's so new that I couldn't justify, is it conquering all of these? I need to give it a year beforehand. But Kelp does a lot of similar things.
That was the one that I thought you were going to have on your list.
Well, I could talk about Kelp all day. I have talked about Kelp a lot on my channel recently. And it's I love hidden movement. Kelp is a game where you reveal a lot of your information as you play, and you're kind of doing this dance in and out of obscurity, which is so cool. But I think Beast is more pure in its hidden movement, as opposed to that just being one aspect of Kelp, which is kind of how I developed this list. But if you ask me on another day, Kelp might have been here. So
yeah. Okay. As long as you said it, That's all.
That was my number 2 at Beast. What's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is a game that I've talked about on this podcast before, probably multiple times. It's come up, and it fascinates me because it is a solo hidden movement game called Black Sonata.
I do not know Black Sonata.
Oh my goodness, Jack. This game is so neat. I'm like, how did anyone design this? But this is designed by John Keane. It came out in 2017 from Side Room Games. And it's a solo hidden movement deduction game where basically you're trying to figure out the identity of the Dark Lady from Shakespeare's sonnets, and everything flavor-wise kind of fits that like Shakespearean vibe. And basically you're trying to, like, you have this very tiny game board and you're going to be moving your like pawn around there, and then you alternate turns between you taking a turn and then this Dark Lady is going to move somewhere. And like basically the way you figure out where the Dark Lady is going to move is based on this like deck of cards. I forget what they're called. Stealth cards. And the really neat thing about this game from a design perspective is when you set up the game, you're going to take one of the 12 potential Dark Ladies and tuck it. And that's going to be like the one that you're looking for. And out of these 12 Dark Ladies, there are 6 different suits. So the one that you pick, you will see on the back of the card which suit she is. And you have to move around the board and try to track her down by deducing where she is based on this stealth deck. Like the stealth deck has icons like a house. So if it's like on the Dark Lady turn, if she was at a beer icon, a glass of beer, and then she's moving now to a house, I'm looking on the map of where, I'm placing these little tokens, these black heads, like wooden heads on the board to say like, okay, she might be here, she might be there. Oh, it's a house. That means she had to have moved there. But you're trying to like find her, and then as you're moving around the board, you're gaining these like location cards that have this little hole on them. They have this little hole. And so when you finally get to a point where, hey, I'm on a spot that I'm pretty sure the Dark Lady is here, your action can be to search and check. And when you search, you're going to put this fog card into the stealth deck, but then you're going to take that card of the location that you're both at or that you're checking, and you're going to put it on top of the other card that has the hole, the location card, flip it over, and in the hole, if you see a little Black Lady icon, then there she is. And you get a clue, which is going to help you get closer to deducing which is the true identity of the Black Lady you're trying to find. So you're basically, every time you have a successful search, you get a clue, and then she flees. And then you have to kind of find her again and get more clues, and you're trying to deduce where she is, and then you confront her. And it's just a crazy system, because when you set up that stealth deck, on one side, there are going to be 4 letters at the top and 4 letters at the bottom. And let's say I'm playing a game today, I will pick one of those spots, one of those positions, and then sort all the cards from A to Z. So maybe I'm looking at the second letter on the top.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. And then you cut the deck, and however this was designed is you're playing a hidden movement game by yourself. It's incredibly fascinating. And then you have these fog cards that are kind of a timer for the game, because if you ever run out of those, I think that's one of the ways you lose.
Right.
But just even the oh, okay, I'm pretty sure she's here, searching, and then when you put that card on top of the other and flip it, and it's oh no, she's not there because it's blank, or yes, she is there, So it's a really, really, really cool game. I have the expansion for it too, which I haven't tried yet. But you highly recommend it. Black Sonata.
You were killing me because as you were describing this game, I was looking up the game and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're describing it in such cool ways. And I was like, oh, is this available? $85, like a secondhand market. And then I went and did some sleuthing, and it looks like we are in luck in that January 20th, 2025, an update number 9 to the reprint Kickstarter saying, hello, everyone, fulfillment begins today. So it looks like
time is right.
Time is right. I imagine that Black Sonata is going to be hitting the stores here pretty soon. It looks like you can also get a print and play version of the game if you want to do that. But Black Sonata and the expansion Strange Shadows is available. So I'm definitely going to be looking into this. So you've tantalized me here, Candace.
Ooh, I don't know that Strange Shadows. The one I have is called The Fair Youth, the expansion.
Ooh, well, we both have some things to look into.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's also cool because the box is small for this one.
Yes, small print, big game. I like it. It looks like it's designed by mad scientists. One of those things where you're like, how does someone come up with this kind of stuff?
Seriously, it is like really, really fascinating and really, really cool that there is a like solo hidden movement game.
Right.
And that's Black Sonata. Check it out.
Well, my number one is one of my favorite games of all time. And I mean that when I say, like, if I were to reduce my collection down to like 10 games, I think this would probably be one of them. And that's Whitehall Mystery, which is the smaller game distillation of Letters from Whitechapel. And this is, to me, one of the best, most distilled hidden movement games that there can be, and is often my introduction to hidden movement for newer gamers to, more casual gamers, or just, like something that I play with very experienced gamers, because it strips out all the nonsense and just gets down to where is Jack the Ripper and can you hunt them. It's an absolute glorious game that is, if you've ever played Letters from Whitechapel in the audience, if anyone has played the larger game and hasn't played this smaller, more condensed version, it replaced it completely for me. I know there are some people who make an argument for both of them, but Whitehall Mystery, it's like Azul in the sense that it's just so intrinsic and obvious while being elegant and smart and beautiful, and I think a fabulous ambassador for the hobby. So,
wow, cool.
One player is Jack the Ripper. The other 3 players, up to 3 players, are going to be investigators, and as part of Scotland Yard. And this is one of the games where I actually think that even though there's a mandatory 3 investigators, it works beautifully well as a 2-player game, because the investigators are just additional pawns that you get to use and source out and collect information. And the very rigid structure of the game and minimalistic elements makes it just pure deduction and reasoning and cat and mouse antics. I was talking about with Ninja developing that sort of meta with a friend who really knows what they're doing. This is a game where, like, even my son, when he was like 8 years old, he was capable enough to start thinking about like, last time I played with Dad, he went and did this and this and this, but I bet you he's trying to juke me out, and now he's going to do this and this and this.
But he knows I know that he's going to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, he, even at that young age, was able to pick up on just how elemental this sort of trickery was. And adults, non-gamers, experienced gamers. I almost always have a really great time with this. And to me, the theme, the Victorian England, is very evocative, very well represented, and touches on those like emotional memories for me of playing Scotland Yard, which of course doesn't take place during Victorian era, but it still has that resonance for me. So Whitehall Mystery, I think, is probably the most pure hidden movement game that's available now, and it's Gabriel Mari's masterpiece in my mind. And Gabriel Mari is known for doing some of the strongest work in this field, like in the way that Donald X is associated with deck building and Dominion.
Yeah.
Or, like certain designers are associated with certain types of mechanics. I really think that this is his masterpiece here.
Cool.
But
uh-oh.
I want to know. Come on.
Oh, you want my number one?
I want your number one. That's what we're all here for.
Well, first of all, I'm going to be picking that game up.
Okay.
Whitehall Mystery. I'm going to pick it up. That it sounds really cool. I feel like have I ever played a full game of Letters from Whitechapel? I don't even know. I think I owned it at some point, but that just sounds intriguing, and I love mind games, which is what makes these games fun. Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
All right. My number one is Atlantic Chase.
I love this pick. I
know it's like a slight weird one, but
we're here to get weird. Come on.
I figured. So this is a game that came out in 2021 from GMT Games, designed by Jeremy White. Plays with 1 or 2 players, and it is called Atlantic Chase because it's basically you're simulating the like naval warfare in the North Atlantic during World War II. So this is like a war game, a historical game, but it's so different from any game that I've ever played. And similar to you saying like, oh, if I'm going to get my collection down to 10 games, if I were right now to say I'm only going to keep 10 like war related games or historical games, Atlantic Chase would be one that I want to like explore more. It's incredibly fascinating. So this game is complex, I will say.
Yes.
It is a bit complex, but the cool thing is that Jeremy White did a really killer job with so much documentation to ease you into it. Like, one of the fascinating things is there's this tutorial book that introduces the mechanisms to you gradually, which you could play solo, and there are like all sorts of different scenarios. But in this game, it's basically like this like operational level war game where you have this big board that's the North Atlantic Ocean, and it is the Royal Navy versus the Kriegsmarine. And basically back then, there was a lot of fog of war because when, a ship or submarine like went out and you're like, okay, I know they're heading towards this destination, but you didn't have necessarily like the radar and technology to know exactly where that vessel was when it's out in the middle of the ocean. And the way that this game represents this is with Catan kind of roads.
Yeah,
wooden pieces, the path you might be on, but you don't know exactly the exact location. And then there's different ways of like getting intel, and your opponent's doing the same. And it's like when you end up meeting and you do combat's on this like sideboard of a mini game. But I just think the idea of, instead of like just direct movement, you're like issuing orders to your ships, like with these trajectories that you're planning, and you're manipulating those. So it's like hidden movement from yourself and your opponent. And it's just very, very unique, and it feels tense, it's immersive, and it's a game that I have not played enough, but like I want to play it more, because I'm telling you, like, I just enjoyed playing through that tutorial. Like, there are lots of examples, and it's like it will look intimidating initially, but if you just like set that puppy up, and it looks gorgeous
Yeah,
too.
I was going to say, like, there's an argument to be made that a lot of GMT games look really dry, but at the same time, they can look very refined and elegant and gorgeous in their dryness. If you know,
Right.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
it really executes on what it's going for, and that curved map on the board is really something else. And the way that it looks set up, and your sideboard that covers part of the map to have the other elements to the game, it really has a unique presentation all unto itself, while still feeling like that, like beautiful and albeit sometimes dry
Right.
type of historical war game. This is a wonderful pick. I've never played the
Thanks.
game, but I'm
Heard about
fascinated with the game. I've heard about
Yeah.
it. I've looked at it. I'm always a little excited and intimidated on the periphery of a lot of GMT games. Like, there's some of the coin
Totally.
series that I like. There's some of the coin series where I'm like, oh man, that is too intense for me. But this is one that I've seen and definitely want to table at some point.
Yeah, and then you have like different tokens, like cardboard tokens that are representing different ships, and like multiple ships could be like a task force that, again, you're like plotting their trajectory from one destination to another, and there's an element of weather. There's like the combat is there's dice rolling, but it's all very immersive, and it's just like nothing I've ever played. And the more I talk about it right now, the more I want to like set it up right now and get back into it. But I just think it's like kind of a unique take on hidden movement, because it's like you're literally chasing each other, but you don't know exactly where you are. You don't know exactly where you are. You don't know exactly where your enemy is, but you're trying to find them by using this like different trajectories and intel that you're getting. And it's really, really cool. So I had to put Atlantic Chase on here.
And look at that. We got 10 unique games, more than 10, because we have all these A's and B's and caveats and, also recommends, and to not have any overlap.
Incredible.
This was great. This is such a cool list, and gives so many different options for so many different aspects of hidden movement and interpretations of hidden movements. And I think that really just shows how creative and how, like, vibrant and varied this hobby is.
Yes, totally. And I will say, just to add one more, my other alternate number 5 that I pushed to my honorable mention is Narcos, the board game.
Ooh,
I don't know if you've ever played that one.
I have played Narcos, the board game. That's a good alternate number 5. I like that.
It's one of the, like, I feel like I haven't played that many hidden movement games, but it's one I played, and it's very like thematic in how it represents the show and the whole Pablo Escobar thing.
Right.
But I came into this being like, oh, Jack's going to talk about Kelp. I can't wait.
Well, I gotta find some way to disappoint and then uplift someone all at the same time.
I love your list of games. You crushed it.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm one of those people that if I'm talking about the new games of the year, I'm going to talk about the new games of the year, and it's going to take a lot for me to have a relatively new game on like a best of all time list. But Kelp is dangerously close to pushing over onto that. But the thing is that I just got it at PAX Unplugged. This
Oh,
last PAX
wow.
Unplugged, I
No, it's
finally
super
got it.
fresh.
It's super fresh, and I'm super in love with it. But, you know, is it
Yeah.
lust or is it love?
Right.
Is it
Too
pure
soon to
hidden movement?
say.
Is it not? I got to give it time. We got to let that one cook a little.
Awesome. Well, I loved hearing about all the other games you mentioned. A couple of them I've never heard of. And I know I've seen that like Whitehall Mysteries, but I never played it, and I want to. I want to get.
Well, it's one of those ones that you can get to the table easy. You can play it 30 to 60 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah. You know,
okay,
super easy teach.
Cool.
You know, that's definitely one. You see me at PAX Unplugged and you're like, Jack, do you have 30 minutes? And I'll be like, we're learning this game. We're doing it.
Awesome. Well, Jack, it has been a blast talking to you. I'm looking forward to hopefully bumping into you at another convention this year. Let me know if you're ever in Los Angeles. But keep up the good work.
Yeah, you too, Candace. And thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast. It was an honor, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Board Game Geek podcast, produced and edited by Candace Harris. Special thanks to Matt Panda for editing and mixing our music. Be sure to visit us on the web at BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch under Board Game Geek. You can reach us by email at podcast@BoardGameGeek.com. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming!